This is KSL Sports Live, broadcasting from the Mountain Home Services studios.
Hey friends, thanks for staying up with us tonight to wrap up your weekend right here on KSL Sports Live. All of the big names in BYU and Utah athletics, they were down in Orlando this week for the Big 12 spring meetings, and KSL Sports was there with them, talking about expanding the college football playoff, how close they will come to reaching the maximum payouts when revenue sharing gets approved. And Kalani Sitake talks to Mitch Harper about quarterback depth amidst the pending lawsuit against Jake Retzlaff. All of that is on the way, including in-depth looks at both the Mammoth and Jazz upcoming draft decisions. But we want to start things off on the baseball diamond. It was a big weekend in the world of baseball, including a World Series rematch. As if the Dodgers World Series win didn't sting enough last fall for the Yankees, last night's game certainly did. LA scoring the most runs ever against the Yankees in team history in an 18-2 win. And today, the Dodgers were going for the 3-game series sweep at Chavez Ravine. Bottom of the second, Dodgers Tommy Edman, he goes solo, tying the game up at 1. Top of the third, Yankees respond though. Ben Rice, he hits a 2-run homer. The Yankees now have a 3-1 lead. The Yankees lead grows to 6-1, but the Dodgers do try to make a comeback. Andy Pages, solo home run there to left, and Max Muncy hits a solo shot, but in the end, the Yankees avoid the sweep. They get the win 7-3. The Mariners and Twins trading blow for blow. Top of the fifth here, Harrison Bader hits it to center field. Julio Rodriguez there for the cleanup with a great diving catch. Bottom of the sixth, Bader gets his revenge, though. Check this out. He's also going to come through with a diving catch, just feet from the same spot that he was out on the inning before. All right, the Mariners would get on the board first here. Cal Raleigh blasting his MLB-leading 23rd home run of the year. Twins would tie it up in the ninth, but the Mariners would get the game winner. Randy Arozarena gets the walk-off RBI for the 2-1 win. The A's taking on the Blue Jays today. Blue Jays would trail 4-2 going into the eighth, but they would string together 6 straight runs, starting with Addison Barger, who launches that shot for the 3-run homer. That would be Barger's 3rd home run in 3 straight games. Then to cap things off, Vlad Guerrero Jr. sends it to center field. That gets down for the 2-run double. And thanks to that big-time inning, the Blue Jays sweep the series, winning it 8-4 over the A's.
Number 3.
Wow!
4th overall selection in the 2025 NHL Upper Deck Entry Draft belongs to the Utah Hockey Club.
Wow. The stories in Utah, Frank.
All right, here we are. Year 1 of Utah Mammoth hockey in the books, and what a ride it's been, right? Still a lot more to come and to be excited about for the future of this team. And here to take a look at it with us and some of these future possible moves is our Utah Mammoth insider for KSLSports.com. It's Cole Bagley. Cole, thanks for stepping in the studio and talking hockey.
Yeah, it's weird to be known as the Mammoth insider now. There's a muscle memory that goes along with the Utah hockey. Yeah, Mammoth's awesome.
A lot of excitement surrounding it, no doubt about it. All right, so first things first here. Let's look at the more imminent future here. The Mammoth, they won the jackpot at the NHL Draft lottery, moving up 10 spots to number 4. A team that already was so close to the playoffs, that already has a lot of young talent on the team in place. What does the number 4 pick do for this franchise in that position? Yeah,
it's just continued momentum. You know, when you consider everything that the Mammoth were able to experience this last year in terms of, you know, the budding stardom of Logan Cooley and Dylan Gunther, Vemelka, Keller, Sergachev playing as well as they have, to have, you know, the 6th overall pick and another later pick last year, and then to get the 4th overall pick this season with 0 of the pain associated with it. That's something that Bill Armstrong talked about was, look, usually to pick inside the top 5, you're going through a lot of pain, and this organization has felt that. But this one, no pain associated, and the momentum just keeps going forward for this club.
Yeah, we saw his reaction. There was no pain in his reaction to winning that lottery pick number 4, obviously, as well. So let's take a look at who you think could be options here at number 4. I think a lot of people say that Matthew Schaefer is going to be the number 1 pick. Is there a chance that he's there at number 4?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to outline the fact that he's probably going to be the number 1 pick, or at least 2. But, there's some worry because this is a guy that only played 17 games this last season. It would take a lot of confidence to pick a guy like that, number 1 overall. So I think just making sure people understand that. But there is a chance, based on things that I've heard and conversations I've been a part of, he could potentially fall. And if he falls at 4, the Mammoth would definitely want to make him, at least the first ever player drafted to wear a Mammoth sweater.
It's not like Cooper Flagg. He's not falling at all in the NBA. There's a chance here. All right. But if Schaefer is off the board, he's probably not going to be there at number 4. So if he's off the board and maybe they want to go on the offensive side of the ice instead of defense, who do you like there?
I really like Porter Martone. He's 6'3", and he is one of those players that is able to, continuously make incredible things happen. And it's a lot of individual, brilliance. He's phenomenal with the puck on his stick. He'll pull moves between his legs. He'll score goals where the goalie and the crowd is going, I have no idea how that ended up in the back of the net. So, he's also a pest. He's obnoxious. He's going to bug, defensemen. He's going to go in the dirty areas. He's going to, jab you with your stick, with his stick, or, push you around in the crease. And that is what Utah needs more of is a guy that's willing to go and do the dirty work. And I really like Porter Martone if he's available at number 4.
Yeah, if there's a mold of a player that Bill Armstrong likes, he likes those big players. Martone certainly would fit in that mold. Now, one thing Bill also has been talking about recently is there's a lot of championship-winning players on this roster. Most recently, it's been Keller, Cooley, Doan, Kesselring, all 4 of them a part of that world championship team with USA. And winning does a lot for a franchise. What can it do for the Utah Mammoth already this season, having those 4 guys who are already leaders on the team bring championship winning experience now to the locker room?
Yeah, this is a team that's stepping into year 5 of the rebuild. And they've gone through a lot of pain, as we already talked about. But what Bill is doing, and like you said, is he's adding championship mentality. He's adding championship experience. He did that a year ago by signing Ian Cole and Kevin Sten and Oli Mata, guys that have won Stanley Cups. He just added 2 prospects in Daniil Boughton and Dmitry Simashev, who just won in the KHL. And now we're getting, these Americans who just did something, they made history. Right. They won a gold medal for the first time since 1933 at the World Championships. And that only has to add confidence. And not just confidence in general, but confidence in young players. Guys like Doan and Kesselring and Logan Cooley, who's only 21 years old. Not only did they win gold, but Logan Cooley led All-Americans with 12 points. I think he had 4 goals, 8 assists. It helps them get a taste of what it takes to win, right? It helps them understand what that takes going through adversity. A mentality that this team is seeking, which is a championship mentality, because now that you're stepping into year 5 of that rebuild, you don't want to talk about the rebuild anymore. You want to talk about competing and contending for Stanley Cups, and that's really what they're looking to do.
Okay, you can read everything that Cole has on the Utah Mammoth over at KSLSports.com, and we'll have you back again next week as we continue to get closer, now 4 weeks away, to the NHL Draft. It's a bit of a letdown when the Jazz got the 5th pick in the NBA draft lottery, right? Well, is it possible that the Jazz trade that pick? KSL Sports Utah Jazz insider Ben Anderson will join us in studio, shares with us some of the Jazz options with that pick. Could they go for Ace Bailey, maybe VJ Edgecombe? We'll be talking all about that with Ben coming up.
For the expansion of it, I think that would be really good to have more teams involved in the sport that continues to grow.
KSL Sports was at the Big 12 meetings in Orlando this week. We talked with both athletic directors from BYU and Utah about the possibility of expanding the college football playoff. And BYU head coach Kalani Sitake addresses his quarterback depth as we are now less than 3 months until kickoff. Salt Lake Community College's magical run at the JUCO World Series ends with a dog pile on the diamond. All of that is coming up when KSL Sports Live continues after this.
You're watching KSL Sports Live.
The month of May, it's been very good to the world's #1 golfer. Scottie Scheffler has 3 top 5 finishes in the month. 2 wins, the Byron Nelson and the PGA Championship. Those are big time. Well, today he had a chance to add another win to that hot streak that he's had this month. First, we want to check in the world of golf. All right, on the LPGA Tour, the ladies playing for a share of $12 million purse at the U.S. Women's Open. This is Maya Stark coming into the final round with a 1-stroke lead on the 6th green. Gets her first birdie of the day, a 30-footer that bends into the cup. Nelly Korda just 1 shot behind Stark, needs that putt for par to stay there, but she missed, falling to 5 under. Then Stark takes advantage to really push her lead. Another pretty putt for birdie on 13. She now has an 8 under score, and Stark would tap in on 18 to win the first major tournament of her career. She takes home $2.4 million. We did have a World Series champion out of our state this weekend, though. Did you know that? The Salt Lake Community College Bruins made just their second ever trip to the Junior College World Series in Grand Junction, Colorado. And it came to a close last night with a dog pile on the diamond. And what a run it was. The Bruins were a team of destiny out there. They started tournament play last week at the JUCO World Series, beating Florida Southwestern 16-2 behind Jackson Grossman and Dallin Weatherly's combined 2-hitter. Hudson Manwaring was outstanding, 4 for 5 with 5 RBI. That game was SLCC's 16th win in a row. Now, they lost on Memorial Day. After that, the Bruins were facing elimination against Florence Darlington on Wednesday. They were even down 10-0 after the first inning, but Salt Lake battled back. Hudson Manwaring hit 2 home runs in the game, and then in the 8th inning, Avery Dozie hits a 2-run homer to give Salt Lake a 17-16 lead, and the Bruins would win, sending them to the semifinals the following day. In that semifinals matchup, it was a rematch against Lakeland, the team that defeated the Bruins earlier in the tournament on Monday. This time around, Salt Lake were the ones to come out on top. Manwaring homered again, his 3rd of the tournament. The 12-2 Mercy Rule win would send Salt Lake home, or Lakeland home, and the Bruins to the national championship game, where they faced Walter State on Saturday night.
Up, right side. Colton Stanton is over, calls it off. Salt Lake has done it. In only the 2nd time in Grand Junction, the Bruins are JUCO World Series champions.
Absolutely love it. They went to Grand Junction to compete in just their 2nd ever Junior College World Series, and they won it all.
Yeah, I mean, we're in our backyard. You know, we're not far from here. And so, you know, we kind of had a saying, we own the mountains. And, you know, our fans, they're amazing. They're here, you know, every game supporting us, and they had a big role in our win today.
We knew a big group was going to be behind us, parents, friends, old teammates, everybody. We just knew that we were close to home, we'll have the crowd, and we just needed to stick within ourselves and play our game.
The 5th pick in the NBA Draft will be made by the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, that countdown to the NBA Draft is now about 3.5 weeks away, where currently the Jazz do have that 5th, but also the 21st picks in the first round. A lot can happen, of course, between now and then. So to help us break this all down, we've called on our NBA expert, KSL Sports Utah Jazz insider, Ben Anderson, in the studio to look ahead. Now, Ben, first off, I know it's been in the past, you know, few weeks. We should be burying this now, but there was that lottery letdown. We haven't talked to you about that since. Is 5 still a good pick, though? That's the question I think a lot of Jazz fans have.
Contextually, yes, 5's a good pick. Compared to number 1,
right?
Not so much. But when you've talked about where the Jazz were drafting at 9, 10 in the last few years, and then, you know, so many picks in the teens and 20s, yes, 5's a very good pick. And whoever the Jazz land is going to be the best prospect on the team. They should expect that with the 5th pick.
Okay, so let's take a look at some of those possibilities for the Jazz, of course. I think, you know, we know Cooper Flagg's not going to be there, likely Dylan Harper. But after that, it could really go any direction. Who do you think is maybe the top guy on the Jazz board?
I would look at a name like Ace Bailey. If you're looking for a player who still has that star upside, maybe the type of person who can be the #1 offensive player, #1 scorer on the team, I think Ace Bailey is a guy who can do that. And you can look at his difficult shot making, and I think that's really what his sell is. You look at the playoffs now, Sam, and it's just guys making difficult shots over good defenses. That's how good the NBA has gotten now. And Ace Bailey at 6'7.5", maybe a little bit shorter than we had thought coming out of Rutgers, but the shot making is as good as you will see, and really better than any of those top 2 players that we mentioned already that are expected to go #1 and 2 overall. So he's the type of player that has a chance to be a 20-point-per-game scorer, if not higher, if he really hits his potential. And I think that's where the excitement with Ace Bailey comes from.
Yeah, 6'10", you mentioned. He's young, too, right? So, and I guess most of these prospects at this point are, but youth means there's probably a higher ceiling there as well. All right, another intriguing prospect, I think, for the Jazz, is VJ Edgecombe.
Yeah, VJ Edgecombe, a lot of fans probably locally saw him playing at Baylor in the Big 12, so he was at Provo playing against BYU and had a big game there. He is, without question, the best athlete in the draft, and that's really his draw. He's about 6'4", so close to 6'6" in shoes, and you get everything you expect from an athlete. He's super explosive. You look at where he takes off when he's going to the rim and attacking. He's really awesome in that sense. Now, his overall game offensively, it's going to be a work in progress. He's not like a Donovan Mitchell-type ball handler, if that's what fans are expecting. He's not going to be a point guard by any means. So he's mostly going to enter the NBA as an off-the-ball three-point shooter who uses his athleticism to attack and transition, put-back dunks, things like that. If the other things come along on the offensive side of the ball, he does have that star potential. But the physical tools are super impressive.
So when we talk about that number 5 pick, and we mentioned, it's not the number 1, but there's still great options here. Is there a chance the Jazz move off the pick? Maybe they try to move up a couple spots if they really like a guy, or do they even look at moving down?
Hey, we're talking about Danny Ainge here.
Right.
So if Danny Ainge is in charge, he's trying to make deals on draft night, and he's made some of the best draft trades ever. We look at Jason Tatum moving up to number 1 or moving back so Markelle Fultz could go to the 76ers, and he gets Tatum at 3, who's turned into a champion and a superstar. So Danny Ainge is going to do his due diligence, and we know he'd gone on, or he'd talked to Shams, he'd talked to Pat McAfee, and they'd said, even if the Jazz don't get number 1, they're going to try and get there. They can't move up to the number 1 pick. Right. I'm going to burst Jazz fans' bubble. But the Spurs at 2, maybe you can get up that high. 3 and 4, the question becomes, how much are you willing to give up? Because we're not going to know who's going to be on the board at 5 until draft night. This isn't going to be the type of draft where lockdown, we know who 3, 4 go and who's going to be sitting there for the Jazz at 5. I think there's still going to be some mystery. So if I were in charge, I'm not sure I'd be willing to break the bank to move up 2 spots for a guy who may slip to me anyways.
Okay, but there's going to be a lot of options. All right. Ben's got a lot of Utah Jazz content that you can follow over at KSLSports.com. You can also listen to Ben daily, Jake and Ben on the KSL Sports Zone, 10 a.m. to noon. And we're going to have you back in studio again next week to break down some of these other possibilities with the Jazz and this pick. Let's keep talking basketball, though. In the WNBA, Connecticut Sun taking on the New York Liberty. This game was all Liberty from start to finish. Sabrina Ionescu finding Brianna Stewart for the layup. Then Stewart, 3-ball. The Liberty would tie a franchise record with 19 three-pointers in this game. It was a 100-52 win. That 48-point win is the second largest margin of victory in WNBA history. That is big time. All right. You know what else is big time? The Big 12 spring meetings. They happened in Florida this weekend and had a heavy emphasis on football-related subjects. But basketball may have delivered the biggest storyline of the week when NCAA President Charlie Baker told reporters that conversations of expanding the NCAA basketball tournament were heating up to make that move as soon as next season already. The number of teams that talks are really narrowing in on are either 72 teams or 78 teams. So that's 4 to 8 more than what we already have, right? KSL Sports Insider Mitch Harper asked Baker what the benefit would be to adding to a tournament that already invites 68 teams every year. Well, here's what Baker told him.
Here's the way I think about it, and you should ask others and see what they think. But there are, the AQs really matter, right, in men's and women's basketball. And they've created some wonderful stories and some amazing games and incredible narratives over the years. The point,
I don't remember,
2 or 76, is to basically give some of those schools that probably were among the 72, 76, 68, 64 best teams in the country a way into the tournament.
All right, time now for us to dive into the vast KSL Sports Archive. On this day, 28 years ago, Game 1 of the 1997 NBA Finals, the Jazz first ever finals game. There were some nerves probably. 9 seconds left, Carmelo at the free throw line. This is when Scottie Pippen infamously told him just before that the mailman doesn't deliver on Sundays. And of course, the mailman missed both free throws. Michael Jordan breaks Jazz fans' hearts for the first time, right, in finals history on that last second shot. Jordan had 31 points, Pippen 27. The Bulls won by 2 points. To this day, I still feel like if the Jazz could have won Game 1 in Chicago, they could have won that NBA Finals. But that didn't happen. All right, BYU's Brian Santiago gave his first public comments since the civil lawsuit was filed against Jake Retzloff. You'll hear his response coming up next. Sports Live continues with the UFL. These are great highlights. Birmingham Stallions facing the Memphis Showboats. First quarter, Stallions take Crowder, picks off the tip pass, takes it all the way to the house for the pick six. The Stallions lead 13-3. But in the second quarter, Stallions in the red zone. Watch this. Jamar Smith hits Amari Rogers, 10-yard touchdown. They extend the lead 20-9. All right, first play of the fourth quarter. This is fun. Crowder gets another pick. Watch the fake pitch to throw off the offense. He juked him. Breaks through traffic to get a second pick six on the day. The Stallions stomped the Showboats 46-9. Orlando, Florida was the place to be this week for the Big 12 Conference. No, of course, not for a Disney vacation, but to discuss a lot of big-hitting topics at the Big 12 spring meetings. Athletic directors, executives, coaches from each institution, they were down there. And possibly the biggest topic of discussion was further expanding the college football playoff already. A 16-team college football playoff model, which would feature 5 automatic bids to the top conference champions and 11 at-large bids, is the model gaining the most traction and could be ready by this upcoming season. The Big Ten has suggested that its conference, along with the SEC, should each get 4 automatic qualifiers, with the ACC and Big 12 getting 2 AQ spots, with 1 more for the best G5 conference. Now, the 5+11 model, of course, is the one that is most supported and one that both Mark Harlan and Brian Santiago would support.
I'm for the expansion of it. I think that would be really good to have more teams involved in this sport that continues to grow. I have high belief in the committee, whether it's a straight 16 or a, or perhaps a 5-11. I think that that's the best way to go.
We want to see what's showcased on the field rewarded, so that everybody has an opportunity to win championships. Certainly you want conference champions to have an opportunity to be in the game, and then you want everybody else that deserves to be in the game to be in the game. That's what we want to see.
Well, it was about a year ago now that the NCAA agreed to the $2.75 billion settlement, which would usher in the revenue-sharing era of college athletics. This would allow institutions to pay their athletes up to $20.5 million. Money that comes from media rights deals, ticket sales, bowl game distributions, and other revenue streams, of course. As of today, though, that settlement still has not been given final approval by the U.S. District Court. This was still a big topic of conversation this week at the Big 12 meetings. And both BYU and Utah, they say that they will be aggressive when it comes time meeting or even coming close to that maximum $20.5 million cap.
We've been preparing for it for an entire year. We're well situated to move forward as part of this new revenue share. We're ready, and we'll pivot when we need to pivot.
We feel very good about where we're at. We've been working on it for well over a year. We've had working groups internally looking at how we're going to distribute revenue. We certainly are going to be at the max at the University of Utah, thanks to our great donors, our great administrative support. So we're excited about it.
It's been just over 2 weeks since Brian Santiago was named BYU's new athletic director. And already in those first couple of weeks, he's had some very big issues to face as the leader of BYU Athletics. Some big decisions as well, including how he and the BYU Athletics department will be approaching the civil lawsuit that was filed against quarterback Jake Retzlaff recently. In a lawsuit that was filed on May 21st, Retzlaff was accused of sexual assault against a Salt Lake County woman. BYU issued a statement that day saying that they take the allegation very seriously and they will follow all guidelines and processes mandated by the Title IX office. For the first time since that lawsuit was filed, Brian Santiago spoke publicly addressing those allegations and telling KSL Sports that he is confident in how it will all be handled.
Certainly it's a tough situation. Be ignorant not to say it's a tough situation, but it's a private matter that's going to be handled privately. We just found out about it when others found out about it, and so we want to respect the privacy of Jake. We want to respect the privacy of the university. We want to respect the privacy of those involved as the matter gets worked out, and have full confidence that the right thing will happen moving forward.
We all know that this is a story that will have a lot of questions following it between now and fall camp. Questions like, will Retzlaff be available to play for BYU this fall? And who would the Cougars turn to if Retzlaff is not available? Well, KSL Sports BYU insider Mitch Harper talked with Kalani Sitake as well at the Big 12 meetings and asked him how the depth is currently at that quarterback position.
Yeah, I think the best way to handle it is say that generally you've known me for a long time now that I want to get the best and the deepest team possible. And so that's at every position, and quarterback being one of them. So I think the goal is to get the best guys out there and get as many as we can and allow them to compete. And so I know sometimes people are worried about rooms getting crowded at all the different positions, but I believe that there's enough to go around, and I believe in competition where the cream will rise to the top, and we're going to see that happen in fall camp.
You can follow all of Mitch's content at KSLSports.com. All right, the Utah Mammoth continue to build its roster this offseason by signing 2 players that they selected in the 2023 NHL Draft. Defenseman Dmitry Simashev and forward Daniil Boot, both fresh off of winning the league championship in the KHL, which is Russia's top pro hockey league. The Mammoth roster is pretty young, but it is already a roster full of players very familiar with winning championships. Of course, Simashev and Boot, they did it in Russia. Gabe Smith, whom the Mammoth just signed last week as well, he helped win the Quebec League. Veti Vasanen, a 2024 draft pick, he won the Western Hockey League. And then, of course, Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, Josh Doan, and Michael Kesselring, they were all part of that United States World Cup championship team. These guys seem to be helping to lay that foundation of what it takes to be a winning team in the Stanley Cup playoffs for the Mammoth.
Well, as I've always said, you don't teach a baby shark how to bite. They know how to bite, and that's a big part of our culture is winning. You know, if you just continue to bring in winners, it's going to translate into to our club winning. We got to make the playoffs first. It's a huge thing. We've got Stanley Cup winners from Ian Cole to Stenlund to Mata to Sergachev, and that all has impact. And if you keep adding winners, soon enough you're going to have an opportunity to win for the Mammoth. So it's something that I love to see in our young players. The winning and in the championships, it really helps build our culture to a point where we're going to have an opportunity to win a championship here.
You know what else winning does? It gets you recognized. And the Mammoth, they've already scored one big win since the end of this past season. It was when the club announced the new team name and logo associated with the Mammoth. Bill Armstrong told us this week that it's one of the hottest brands in the NHL right now. In fact, when he was in Canada just days after the logo release, he was recognized in public for the Mammoth on his shirt, and he suddenly became the most popular guy at his hotel.
I ended up going to Canadian Town to do a little bit of scouting, and I forgot that I had the logo on my shirt, and I went into this this hotel, and there was a massive youth hockey tournament. I forgot that I had the logo on, and the kids seen it, and this was about 2 days after we had released it, and it literally started a riot in the hotel lobby about, you know, where did he get that? Who are you? And I jumped in the elevator quickly, and they saw that I went up to the 9th floor. Well, they all headed up. There's about 3,000 kids on the 9th floor screaming. I could hear them as I locked myself in the room. Where's the Mammoth guy? Where's the Mammoth guy? So I realized at that point it was the logo was a massive hit, not only in Utah, but also across the world.
That's such a good story. All right, let's head back to the major leagues. NL Central leading Cubs against the Reds. In the 3rd inning, Dansby Swanson, he doubles to left field. Paul Crew Anderson has the wheels to score all the way from first. Later in the 3rd, Michael Busch hits a 2-run homer to right center, giving the Cubs the 4-0 lead. Now, Reds shortstop Ellie De La Cruz, he found out that his sister had passed away earlier in the day. He decided to still play the game, and he steps up, crushes a 2-run homer in the 6th inning. He points to the sky as he crosses home plate. Cubs win the game, though, 7-3. Colorado Rockies taking on the New York Mets. The Rockies stink, the Mets don't. Bottom of the 4th, Mets Pete Alonso crushing a 3-run homer. The Mets have the 3-1 lead. Then in the bottom of the 5th, Francisco Lindor put New York back in front with a solo homer. And in the bottom of the 8th, Juan Soto does it again. 2nd straight day with a home run. The Rockies drop to 9-50. The worst record through 59 games in the modern era, and the 3rd fastest team to lose 50. My goodness, that's awful. The Utah Warriors were on the pitch this weekend with a chance to clinch a playoff spot. 10 minutes in, Joey Mano gets the try on the long pass from Joel Hodgson for the game's first score. They would easily win 31-10. They have a league best 53 points, and with that win, they clinch a spot in the playoffs. All right, how about the PLL season? That began this weekend. Two-time reigning champ Utah Archers were in the finals rematch from last year against the Maryland Whipsnakes. Game tied at 6 in the fourth quarter. That's when Dyson Williams gave us that play of the day candidate, the behind-the-back goal for the 7-6 lead. Then with 4 minutes to go, tied at 7, Tom Schreiber gives the Archers the lead again, and this time that would hold for the win. How about it? The Utah Archers top the Maryland Whipsnakes to open up the weekend. Hey, we'll be back in next weekend. Join us for KSL Sports Live Saturday at 6.